How you doing, guys? This is Eric from rulethewasteland.com, secretoftheinternet.com, and buythermite.com. This video is about the enthusiasm gap and fraud in the upcoming presidential election. I've talked a lot about both of these issues, and I just wanted to get into them at a little more specifics because I think there's some misunderstanding out there about these individual issues. We'll start with the enthusiasm gap. There is unquestionably an enthusiasm gap when it comes to voting, or when it comes to the feelings about the actual respective candidates in their parties, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. There's unquestionably much more enthusiasm for Donald Trump as the candidate than there is in the Republican Party, than there is for Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party. And you see that with the primaries, where she had to cheat and do a bunch of weird shenanigans to beat out Bernie Sanders. You see them continue through with a lot of the rallies. Tim Kaine had like 30 people at a rally recently in Florida. Hillary Clinton only has a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand showing up at hers. And Donald Trump, meanwhile, is having tens of thousands. There's hardly a rally he has that has less than 10,000 people at it, unless the venue just cannot support it. I mean, the venues can't support what's showing up, but I don't know of any rally that's had less than at least 5,000 or 10,000 people. And in Tampa, just a day or two ago, we had 20,000 people. So, and I mean, the signs, you can look at the stickers, you can look at the Facebook live streams, and then just the followers, and it just is unquestionable that a lot more people are excited about Donald Trump than are excited about Hillary Clinton. What needs to be understood about this is that just because people are excited for the person doesn't necessarily mean that all the other people that are not excited for Hillary Clinton are not going to vote for her. There's two issues at play here. One is that a lot of people may be voting against Donald Trump, that he's a polarizing figure. So they're very fired up about voting against him maybe, but they're not necessarily fired up about for Hillary Clinton. So they're not going to go to rallies, they're not going to buy her stickers, but they really, really, really don't want Donald Trump to win, so they are going to vote. I don't think it's enough to overcome this insane enthusiasm that you see on the right for Donald Trump. But it's not as big of it does close the gap. If Trump wasn't as polarizing, if all the people who weren't excited about Hillary Clinton didn't really hate Donald Trump, they just didn't like him, he would just blow this thing out of the water. But there's a lot of people who it just really rustles their jimmies, everything about him. They just can't stand him, and it just is like some affront to their view of what the country is and what, the universe that they live in if he were to become president. So they're going to do everything in their power to stop that. So even though they don't give a shit about Hillary Clinton per se, they really don't like Donald Trump. So that closes the gap because they don't have to like Hillary Clinton to go vote against Donald Trump. And the liberals have always been better at doing this. The conservatives, especially Republicans, in the past have seemed to always need someone to vote for. They're not good at getting riled up and rallying each other to go vote against someone. If they don't like the candidate that the Republican Party has put forward, they tend to stay home. Whereas the liberals, on the other hand, and Democrats specifically, have always been pretty good at just doing whatever the party wants. So if they don't, they can just convince them to vote against someone, even if they're not inspired by their candidate. So we're seeing that they're definitely not inspired by her to an extent that we haven't seen in a while, like especially with Obama, had everyone just jizzing in their pants on the left, and you don't see that with Hillary Clinton. They definitely prefer her over Trump, but they don't like her. They're not that fired up about her. But that does close the gap because these people, most of them, still will go out and vote. I don't think it's enough to overcome these massive enthusiasm that you see on Trump's side, but it's not as big of a difference as it appears simply based on like rally turnout, followers online and stuff. That's indicative of this enthusiasm gap, but because he is such a polarizing figure, he's going to inspire some of these people to still go vote just to vote against him, not to vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that he will still win, and the enthusiasm gap is a big part of that, especially because when you look in like the African American communities and the Hispanic communities and a lot of other different groups that have lower turnout anyway, they're just probably not going to get as fired up about voting against Donald Trump as they are about voting for Barack Obama or something like that. So it closes the enthusiasm gap a little bit, but it's not going to catch her up, I don't think. So that's my thoughts on the enthusiasm gap. That it's definitely there, but it's not as big as it should be per se based on how little enthusiasm there is for Hillary and how much there is for Donald Trump. It's equalized by the fact that a lot of people are going to show up just because they just can't stand him. Just the sight of him pisses them off. Russell's their Jimmy's so bad that they just start crying and have triggered episodes of some kind, need a safe space, so they're going to go vote against him. The next one is the fraud, election fraud. There's unquestionably electoral fraud. It happened before. It's been happening for years. It's going to happen in this election as well. Like I've mentioned in my video before, I don't think for many reasons that any election in the past, or at least in the near future, is just selected by a couple people sitting in a room saying, yes, this is who we're going to have as president, make it so, and it's just already predetermined. And you see that because of their actions. Like I mentioned in that video, I won't go into all the details again, but they're not going to be bussing people around. They're not going to be paying people to start fights and things like that if they could just already have decided who's going to win. But that doesn't mean that there is no fraud, and there unquestionably is. And they're going to focus it in the areas that they think can make the most effect. So they're not going to go into the heart of the reddest place in the country and try to swing the vote by bussing people in or by messing with the voting machines or having people throw away a couple ballots here and there. They're going to do it where they think the race is already close. So that's one thing, is that it's going to be focused in certain areas. And also, they're not going to do something, or they might not be able to do the fraud in a way that will overcome like probably a 10-point difference in the votes. So it's going to be where it's close. So the best way to beat it is to show up I mean, obviously the best way to beat it would be to root it out and absolutely stop it, to fix the voter registration stuff, to fix the voter ID laws. But there's no time for that for this election. So the best way to do it is to actually go out there and vote and make the gap, the winning margins, big enough that they can't overcome it with fraud, or that if they do, it's so obvious that they had to do so much fraudulent voting, fraudulent activity, that there's going to be evidence of it. So please don't do the whole like, oh, it's rigged, I'm not going to go vote kind of thing, because yes, there is fraud. It's not rigged, but there is fraud, electoral fraud out there, and there's a couple things you can do to stop it. Basically, talking about it a lot, spreading the news, the evidence of what they've done, is going to make it harder for them to do it, because people are going to be looking for these things. And it also, even if this election were to still go sour, it makes it a lot easier to fix these, close these holes, these loopholes, and these abilities for fraud in the future. Another one is things like wearing red on election day, which is an idea that's been passed around that I'm certainly going to do, is if you're going there to vote for Trump, wear red. That way, if you show up there and there's a sea of red, or even a few, 4, 5, 6, 10 people out of half of whatever's there, and then you come back and you see, like in 2012, where 0 people in this whole district voted for Romney or something, you'll know something's up. And just keep an eye on what's going on. Take pictures of the polling places if you can. Sometimes it's illegal inside, but if you see Trump bumper stickers and stuff in the parking lot, try to get a general idea and spread that. And just keeping eyes on, shining the light of day on it is the best thing we can do at this point, but still need to vote. So don't let that affect you, the idea that there's fraud out there. Don't let it stop you from voting, because we can still overcome it, and we don't need to do it everywhere, but if we can overcome in a few swing states, I think if there were a totally fair vote, popular vote, Trump would win in a massive, massive margin. So we just have to overcome a little bit of fraud in certain areas. Not that big of a hurdle. It definitely can be done. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later.